A very wonderful day to you, and thanks for joining us on today's episode of the program Environment and You on Independent Television. My name is Catherine Eyemese, your regular host. The program Environment and You is a platform where we discuss environmental issues, thereby preferring solutions to some of these issues through experts' discussions on the program. And like I said, we shall be taking a look at the topic which says the effects of poor sanitation on public health. I am not alone in the studio. I have a guest with me who shall be doing justice to the topic of discussion today, and he is in the person of Mr. Olushola Babalola. He is the Director, Center for Environmental Sustainability and Development Awareness. I must welcome you to the program, sir.
Good afternoon, Nigerians, and thank you for having me on the show.
All right, to begin the program today, I would like you to share more light into the two concepts that has to do with the topic of discussion today, sanitation and public health, and the relationship between these two keywords.
Okay, sanitation is a way of life that guarantees, a disease-free, environment, society. So in the sense that if your environment is clean, the society will be rid of unnecessary diseases that we have, presently witnessing, across the globe.
Okay.
So, and we all know that as little as diarrhea, it has a multiplying effect, on those that suffer, dysentery or cholera, like that, especially, kids that are below 5 years of age. Then when we are talking about public health is all an encompassing. So what we are talking, in actual fact is that how do we guarantee the safety, both the physical, the mental, the psychological safety, of an individual or group of people in a society.
All right, thank you very much. Talking about sanitation, how would you assess the country Nigeria in terms of sanitation? How well are we doing?
Okay, so that's a very critical question that probably need some data or indices to answer. As we all know, as we are speaking, they said Nigeria is the headquarters of open defecation in the world. So that is a pointer to a very big thing. That's a pointer to the fact that Nigeria is not faring well when it comes to sanitation. So we don't even need a soothsayer, to tell us that as far as sanitation or practice of good sanitation is concerned, in Nigeria, we are not yet there.
All right, so are we only guilty of open defecation?
No, I just that's why I said.
What other?
Quite a number of things, that are actually going on. When you look at the toilet deficit, for example, in Nigeria, the number of toilet deficit, there are standards. There are a number of, a toilet, to an individual or individual household. So when you look at all these indices, they are not there. Just of recent, we just concluded a project that we are working across, selected schools, secondary school in FCT, in Market and Motor Parks. And what we saw in terms of revelation are mind-boggling. In terms of provision of sanitation facility, which includes toilet, which includes washroom, which includes hand washing ponds, which include provision of water, supply of water in those areas. All those things are not there. The amenities are not there. They are not sufficient where they are, in the first place. So these are part of indices that we can actually use to judge whether we are there in terms of water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Oh, okay. From what you said so far, a lot of factors contribute to the fact that we are not doing well when it comes to sanitation. You talked about the open defecation, and I believe indiscriminate waste disposal is part of it. Now, how do we get it right? What do we do to improve the situation?
Okay, like I used to tell people that the issue of sanitation is like that of security. It's everybody's business. Yeah. So whether we like it or not, we can't run away from it. If you are clean and your immediate neighbor is not clean, so definitely it's going to attract diseases, to the neighborhood. And before you know it, anybody can be caught up in the web of, that infection. at the end of the day. So the first thing we need is education. Education is very, very important. We need to let people know the antecedent effect of poor, sanitation and hygiene practices, in Nigeria. Then when we do that, then we begin to look at how, we can come together as stakeholders. There are quite a lot of stakeholders in sanitation, sector. We know them, the community, government agencies that are saddled with different responsibility that has to do with sanitation, environment, hygiene, of the society. So they are there. There is need for synergy, and until we have that synergy, so we are not going anywhere. Then again, we need a lot of investments to ensure that we have a proper sanitation in place in Nigeria. Poverty is one big factor, that is constituting to poor sanitation. Of course, we've seen a situation whereby in the neighborhood, people build houses, there are no toilets. People build toilets, there are no water supply. So all these things needs investment, loads of investment for us to be able to achieve, the standard that we want in terms of sanitation in Nigeria.
All right, talking about awareness and educating the public as it concerns their personal hygiene and environmental sanitation. Like as an environmentalist, I'm sure a lot of education and awareness has been carried out so far before now. Now, how would you rate the response of residents to this awareness and education given to them?
Yeah, like I earlier said, the problem of sanitation is a problem of structure. Education alone cannot do it. Yes, we can give people education from now till tomorrow. Yes, quite a number of people are responding to that, looking for means to ensure that they keep a very clean environment, making sure that they have a very good sanitation practices in places, ensuring that they practice, a good hygiene, what is it called, habit, at the end of the day. But yes, education is key. In fact, it's number one. But again, there are other roles that government needs to play.
Okay.
For example, we are talking about water supply. You understand? A community without a good source of water supply, no matter how best you try to give education in that kind of a community, the sanitation, process of that place will still remain the same. Yes, they love to use WC, but they don't have money to do that. You understand? Yes, they manage to buy WC, but there's no water supply, to the WC. So if you don't have water supply, at the end of the day, the WC, the water system, the toilet water system is wasteful, because it's not going to be useful at the end of the day. So these are part of things that we really need to consider, before we put into perspective what exactly we want to do in terms of sanitation. Okay.
Now, talking about sanitation, in the time past, we used to have this monthly sanitation, environmental sanitation, and for some reasons, it was put on hold. Now, are you an advocate of this? Are you advocating that this monthly environmental sanitation be brought back into the system?
Yes, we
and how do we go about it?
Yes, we need it, and that's the key role that agencies like National Sanitation Agency is supposed to be playing. And some of our media houses, I've never read it anywhere that they relapsed that order. It's still very much in force. It's just that maybe
in some parts of the country.
So maybe the government does not really have the political will to enforce that, and that is one of the bane of poor, sanitation in Nigeria. There are quite a number of laws. There are others, that guides, sanitation procedure and processes in Nigeria. But the problem we're having is implementation. How much of them have been implemented? How much of them do we have political will to do that? Yes, there is no society that will say they don't want that kind of a thing. To a very large extent, that has been able to restore sanitation sanity in Nigeria. We remember in the 80s, in the early 90s, when people deemed it fit to ensure that the last Saturday of the month, between the hour of 8 o'clock and 10, in the morning, 2 hours, is a sanitation exercise for everybody, for all the household in Nigeria. There will be no movement except the frontliners, and we make sure that we clean our surroundings. And to a very large extent, it has really helped, our environmental, sanitation sector in Nigeria.
Okay, enforcement is one of the problems that we have in this part of the world. Now, how do we ensure a cleaner and a safer environment for us all in terms of measures? What measures can be put in place to enforce sanitation? Because, like you said, educating the public is not only what should be done. Now, even if you educate them, some people, it is hard for them to implement whatever they are being taught. So how do we, what measures can we take to enforce sanitation in this part of the world?
Okay, so first we need to review our policies. So there are quite a number of frameworks, but again, we need to look at the frameworks. Are they in tune with present-day realities? So if they are not in tune with present-day realities, we can do add and delete.
Okay.
So remove all those sections of the framework that are not potent, and see how we can actually integrate, some of the framework with, potent clauses, that is going to ensure, good sanitation practices in Nigeria. But again, beyond the policy, there are other measures that we really need, to put into consideration. For example, we need to increase the budgetary allocation, for the wash sector.
Okay.
That is very, very important. If you look at the recent published wash norm report that was jointly done by Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Bureau of Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, it's highly revealing. It tells a lot of story around, the sanitation, where we are, what we can do in terms of, making sure that we have good, sanitation in place in Nigeria. So this is where we really need to invest, money. Then again, we need to consult, Nigerians. When I say consult, we really need to consult those people that are involved, in the sanitation. There is no matter how good intention government is, if you don't carry people along in terms of the kind of services you want to render vis-a-vis sanitation, there's going to be problem. Because we have seen in the past whereby, people use development partners' money to sink, to sink boreholes, but at the end of the day, the people of the community will tell you our priority is not borehole. So you really need to carry them along and, explain to them what are the processes that are involved and the kind of importance, that is attached, to sanitation. We need to increase the budgetary allocation for the wash sector. When I say wash sector, I'm talking about water, sanitation, and hygiene sector. So again, we still need education. It's very important. Being a graduate does not mean that you know the right thing to do when it comes to the issue of, sanitation. We really need to let them know, what it involves, the implication, the disadvantage of not keeping a clean environment. And there are quite a lot of myths, mythology around, sanitation. For example, the use of latrine, there are quite a lot of, mythology around it. So we really need to unbundle, such mythology around all those things. Okay. Then we really need to do an upgrade of our infrastructures, especially in public places, public utilities like markets, like schools, like malls that we have. So these are very important. Even in the bus stops, you agree with me that in Nigeria, today in Abuja and Lagos and every part of Nigeria, Nigerians have, what is it called now? Use some of the workshop as some of the bus stop as makeshift toilets.
True.
At the end of the day, so this we really need to discourage this habit. We really need to discourage this act, and that is where the issue of education, is very, very important. Then again, the agencies that are saddled with responsibility of ensuring good sanitation needs to be up and doing. They need to be alive, to their mandate. Every agency has their mandate, and they really need to be up and doing to make sure that they are alive to their mandates. These are very, very important.
All right, thank you very much. It's been the program Environment and You on Independent Television, and we have been discussing the effect of poor sanitation and public health. And it has been Mr. Olushola Babalola, the Director, Center for Environmental Sustainability and Development Awareness, doing justice to the topic of discussion. Now, let's go back to open defecation, because as far as we are concerned, open defecation is the number one on the list of when we talk about poor sanitation. Now, Nigeria is expected to end open defecation by
2025.
Exactly. Now, what have we done so far? Are we working in the right direction? Is this achievable from what has been going on so far?
Yeah, it's something that we can achieve. 2025 is just about 2 years ago, and there are quite a lot of efforts in place. In fairness to government,
okay,
they have put quite a number of efforts in place. But again, like I said, to really wage war against open defecation and win that war, we need a lot of synergy. You know, from the government, from the private sector, from development, you know, partners, from civil society organizations. They have their different roles, you know, to play. Like we are talking about now, that money, you know, finance, investment in sanitation, you know, sector is something that is very huge. So yes, how do we make sure that we come up with lofty ideas around, you know, ensuring that we bring, you know, good sanitation, you know, to Nigerians at the end of the day? Yes, we all know how much it costs, you know, to procure a WC, for example, but what are the research, what is it called, our research institutes are doing to ensure, you know, that they come up with low cost, you know, sanitary wares, you know, that is going to help, you know, improve the sanitation process in Nigeria. The private sector, the corporate world, how much of sanitation, what is it called, work have they adopted as part of their CRS, corporate social responsibility, for example? I know for a fact in Nigeria there was a time that we said we're going to have 1,000 toilets built across the 6 area council, you know, in FCT. So how much of them have they built? At what cost? So who is coming to rescue? So these are questions we really need to, you know, begin to ask ourselves if really we are going to get there. So we really need to review, you know, that process in place to ensure where we are. You know, for now, as per, you know, that particular question that you asked, I can't tell you categorically, but I know Nigeria is working towards that, and I know there are quite a lot of efforts in place. I know they have built quite a number of toilets across, you know, the FCT. There are some of them in the markets, there are some of them in the parks.
Some are still ongoing.
Some of them are still ongoing. So how many of them can we build, you know, before 2025? So these are part of it.
Yeah, irrespective, I also believe that irrespective of whatever has been put in place already, maintenance culture should also be put into consideration. Now, talking about indiscriminate waste disposal around the environment, especially, for instance, the FCT. Now, the satellite towns are the worst hit because they do not get enough attention from government agency or the people, the organization, the agency responsible for evacuation of this waste, simply because they say they are not responsible for satellite town, and there is no monitoring mechanism put in place to oversee the activities of residents living in this area. So what do you have to say concerning that? How do we move forward? How do we ensure the cleaner and safer environment of this satellite town?
There are quite a lot of intrigues into that. We have a Directorate of Satellite Town in place in Abuja. You agree with me? And part of their mandate is to ensure the sanitation of, you know, satellite towns.
But it seems to be dormant. We aren't seeing them at all.
So that's why I said it's a multi-stakeholder. We need a lot of multi-stakeholder effort in place. They are doing their own, but what is the, for example, the development council doing in terms of putting in place illegal structures and what have we? Even behind us here, we all knew what is going on, you know, in terms of people living in shanties. So, and there are people there are organizations that are agencies, for example, that are saddled with responsibility ensuring, you know, that, you know, all those things are not happening in the first, you know, instance. So, but again, we need the cooperation of the community. There is little or nothing you can do when it comes to getting rid of all this, especially the disposal of waste products.
At least to a minimal
So to a minimal level. So we need the cooperation of the community. It's more or less like a community conspiracy, because presently we are working in Yaya, and we did a tour of Yaya. We tried to, you know, traverse the entire, length and breadth of Yaya. We look at the markets, we look at the parks, we look at the adjoining, communities to actually ascertain what is the situation of things. In the market, for example, they will tell you they are paying the government agency that are responsible.
So the government should be the one
of that. So
to
definitely, what is the government doing? Why are they not doing it? So if they claim it's none of their business, they've paid government to come and evacuate it on weekly basis. They will tell you they do their sanitation on weekly basis. After packing the debris, after packing the waste, it's left for the government agency that is saddled with that responsibility to come and evacuate it. But if they don't evacuate it, the next 30 minutes is as good as they have not done anything. So, and that is the more reason why government really needs, to be up and doing in terms of ensuring that we have, a proper mechanism in place that can actually adequately tackle, the issue of sanitation. And for the community, like I said, it has become habit in Yaya. For example, you see people throwing, disposing, their refuse indiscriminately, in bus stops, in corners, and we ask them, we ask questions, why is this happening? And they came up with quite a number of flimsy excuses. Because a refuse bag will have helped, because if you neatly put your refuse in a refuse bag and you have a point of collection that, like you said, we have a directorate of satellite town that is in charge. We have Abuja Environmental Protection Board that can bring what they call rural bin.
It will go a long way.
Them and ask them, compel them to make sure that anytime they want to dispose, they put it there. But all those things are not happening. So, and that is the more reason why we need to come together as stakeholders and ensure, especially the community, to successfully win the war of open defecation or indiscriminate disposal of refuse. We have to carry the community along. The gatekeepers, the traditional ruler has a role to play. The youth, the market women association, the non-state actors, have their role to play, as well. The civil society organizations have their role to play as well.
All right, thank you very much. I think you heard him. He has said it all, that the issue of the environment is a collaborative effort. We all have to come together for a cleaner and safer environment. We all are stakeholders to environmental issues. And before we wrap up the program, I would like you to say your last words to viewers out there watching the program. Because time is no longer
just like I said, sanitation and environmental issues, just like that of a security issue, it's everybody's business. And we should try as much as possible to play our role. And not just playing it, but to play it well. So that by 2025 or 2030, as been said by Sustainable Development Goals, we have an open defecation-free society in Nigeria, so that we can have a clean society in Nigeria. So at the end of the day.
All right, thank you very much. We've come to the end of the program Environment and You on Independent Television today. Next week is another day for another interesting package of the program. And until then, remember that cleanliness is next to godliness, and we all are stakeholders to a safer and cleaner environment. And I must thank you very much for being on the program, sir. We so much appreciate your presence.
Thank you once again for having me on the show.
Yeah, I've been your host, Catherine Eyemese. Join us again same time next week. Bye for now.